Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this session where you'll get to see solutions that have been designed to tackle digital payment fraud and advance financial inclusion either directly or indirectly. My name is Grace Matebula. I am a program manager at the Alliance for Innovative Regulation, and I will be your host for the session. Starting off with some housekeeping rules. This meeting is being recorded and will be made accessible on AIR's conference website, as noted on the screen. Please place all devices on mute, and comments and questions will be addressed during the designated Q&A slots. Please pose your questions then by either raising your hand or posting in the comments section or the Q&A section. At this point, I would like to state the order of the event. So we have 3 organizations that will present today, and each organization will have 12 minutes to present, after which we will switch over to audience Q&A for 4 minutes. And this is where we will encourage you to actually ask questions, and then we will move over to the next organization. I would like to introduce our showcase organizations and presenters. And I'm going to ask our presenters to wave to the audience as I introduce them and their organizations. Firstly, I'd like to introduce Dr. Federico Moschiotto, presenting on behalf of FNA. He's the lead data scientist at FNA, which is a deep technology firm specializing in SIP-tech, RegTech, advanced network analytics, and simulation. He has 10 years of experience in deep tech analytics and academic research on network science and its financial applications. He co-leads and develops different solutions across the fin crime and national security sector, with a particular focus on network anomaly detection and graph AI models for fraud detection on faster payment systems. Over the last 5 years, Federico has led and contributed to dozens of network graph analytics projects with FNA's clients across both developed and emerging market jurisdictions. Next, I would like to introduce Gabe Ruhan, who is presenting on behalf of Paycode. Hi, Gabe. So Gabe is a seasoned entrepreneur with a distinguished career in technology and engineering sectors. He co-founded Global Switch, which is a leading data center operator, and later served as Chief Operating Officer at Navisite Incorporated, which is a prominent cloud service provider, and CEO of Global Marine, which is a marine engineering company. In 2014, Gabe joined Paycode to advance financial inclusion in emerging markets. Paycode is a business-to-business technology provider offering a unique digital payments platform for last-mile solutions. Their biometric identity and payments technology enable seamless offline transactions in rural areas, enhancing financial systems for institutions, central banks, and governments, while driving financial inclusion for Africa's underbanked communities. And finally, I'd like to introduce Sandy Labuschagne. Sandy, are you there? You can wave at us. And Sandy is the product owner at Tazama. With over 25 years in financial services, Sandy specializes in delivering transformative projects and systems that drive operational excellence and innovation. Excelling in project management, business analysis, and data management, she has led systems implementations, launched banking products, and mentored diverse teams. Notably, she established a greenfield bank, implemented a Basel II compliant credit system, and has driven strategic initiatives at Deloitte and Rand Merchant Bank. Sandy is committed to advancing financial inclusion and driving meaningful change in the financial services sector at Tazama. Tazama is a free open source software system developed by the Linux Foundation and is designed to help organizations monitor financial transactions to detect potential fraud and money laundering in real time. At this point, I would like to call on Gabe Ruhan from Paycode to get ready, to get ready for presenting. When you're ready, I will start the timer.
Can you stop sharing, Grace, so that I can share my screen?
Oh, sorry. Am I still sharing? Yep, I'm still sharing. Okay.
Okay. Good
Cool.
morning,
Your
everyone.
12 minutes starts now.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you to the Alliance for Innovative Regulation for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. Fraud prevention has always been at the heart of the Paycode solution. And as well as fraud prevention, we're addressing some of the other fundamental barriers to financial inclusion, which I'll touch on briefly. The Paycode EDAP system is a smart card-based payment switching and settlement system, which is aimed primarily at reaching the unbanked and underserved segments of the population, specifically in rural and semi-rural areas, where other forms of electronic payment don't function to a level that instills trust and confidence with users. The Paycode EDAP system has some unique features that enable it to function completely offline, whilst also providing users with the state-of-the-art security based on biometric authentication of cardholders. We're a B2B technology company, which means that we're providing this solution to central banks and to commercial banks around the world to enable them to reach that last mile population that we talked about. In terms of our experience in West Africa, our largest customer in West Africa is an organization called GIPS, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Central Bank of Ghana. And we were brought in to supply and develop and implement an alternative national switch and a biometric smart card payment system, which is known locally as eSwitch. That system currently comprises about 4 million cards issued, about 5,000 point-of-sale devices covering 26 retail banks, 14 savings and loans companies, 127 rural and community banks, and there are 33 private companies who use our payment distribution system to process their payments. I'd like to talk to you a little bit, if I can, to set the scene of the challenges as we see them in terms of financial inclusion. Namely, they are identity, cost, and connectivity. Almost 1 billion people don't have a foundational identity document, that is, an identity document issued by a government, which means it's difficult for them to be financially included and to do digital financial transactions. 1.4 billion people remain unbanked, and 2.9 billion people don't have regular access to a network. So I'd like to talk to you how we address those three issues, and you'll see how in combination they drive financial inclusion. So first of all, dealing with the lack of foundational identity. Paycode uses this tablet device that you see here on the right-hand side. Into that tablet device, we put a blank bank card, and we issue those bank cards in real time. So we're issuing them to our cardholders in their own communities. So the first process is we're capturing somebody's identity. When you don't have a foundational identity, the minimum hurdle that we're able to get to satisfy the bank is that this person is unique and that this person is alive. So the uniqueness is based on a deduplication of the database of all of the people in the system. You can only be in the system once, so we can't verify that you are who you say you are, but we can verify that you're a unique individual. And we use liveness detection on the biometric reader so that we can establish that that is not a false finger, but it's a real live finger. The KYC that we're capturing is obviously controlled by the bank for whom we're working, who owns the system. So this isn't an exhaustive list, but it's a typical list of KYC information we're capturing. But we're always capturing biometric information for security and identity reasons. And we're also issuing at least one electronic wallet. And the relevance of that will become clear later, I hope, when we talk about offline transactions. In terms of cost, 1.4 billion adults don't have a bank account, and that's largely standard bank fees are prohibitive for most people in this target group. So having established that somebody is a unique individual, we actually issue that individual with a low-cost bank account on our platform. And we describe that as being an account capable of doing day-to-day transactions, making payments and receiving payments. And because we're able to do many millions of accounts on our platform and provide the net settlement figures to the bank, it's a very low-cost system for the bank to operate. In terms of connectivity, the final obstacle I just want to touch on, 39% of the world's population don't have access to the internet. And that's either because there's intermittent internet in their area or they don't have a device capable of accessing. And that inability to transact due to unreliable coverage does hamper trust in technology. So our solution actually alters the way a card system works, and we put a digital representation of the funds onto the card itself alongside your digital identity. And you can see here one of our point of sale device. This is a simple Android point of sale device. We always use biometric information in our transactions. So when we issue you with the card, we're putting the templates of your fingerprints onto the chip of the card itself, alongside a fully fledged bank account. And what that enables us to do is transactions done on this point of sale device don't require any reference to any back-end infrastructure. When you put your card in, you authenticate yourself to prove that it's your card, and the transaction takes place between the point of sale device and your wallet, which prevents any double spend problem and allows those transactions to continue throughout the day without any requirement for connectivity. So using that combination of RegTech and FinTech, addressing the issues of identity, cost, and connectivity, we're able to deliver true financial inclusion and effectively eliminate any fraudulent transactions. We don't encounter any fraudulent transactions on our system. We don't have issues of chargebacks. We never have to deal with that because of the way the system is designed. Only the person who owns the card is able to initiate a transaction. We're able to do a range of transactions on that point of sale device. Any kind of payment can be received onto the card, whether that's a wage or a grant or a microloan or even remittance. And with that value on the card holder is able to make purchases, do cash out subject to liquidity, send value to other cards, etc., etc. So turning to the issue around fraud, we believe identity is fundamental in digital banking for several reasons. I'd go so far as to say that many of the challenges in payments are essentially identity issues. For example, push payment fraud stems from inadequate identity infrastructure. And identity forms the backbone of trust, security, and regulatory compliance. Identity ensures that only authorized individuals can access financial accounts and initiate transactions. And that same identity system helps mitigate fraud risk by making it harder for malicious actors to impersonate legitimate users. Digital banking platforms are obviously legally required to verify customer identities and prevent money laundering, terrorist financing, and other illicit activities. And identity systems enable monitoring and reporting of suspicious activity, which helps the banks adhere to those strict AML regulations. A reliable identity system fosters trust between the customer and the bank, which does encourage higher adoption rates for digital banking across the continent. For many underserved populations in emerging markets, having a verifiable digital identity is the first step to accessing banking services, and platforms like Paycode can play a transformative role here by linking identity solutions to financial services, enabling people without traditional documentation to access banking systems. I'm going to break there, Grace, and allow you to open it up for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Gabe. Are there any questions for Paycode? Okay. Okay then. So for now, we'll move over to FNA. So I'm going to give you the opportunity, Federico, to try and share your screen again. And then if we can't get it up, then we'll move over to the next one. You can try. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Let me try. This works. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. Maybe this worked. Okay, so
Yeah,
I'm gonna start now.
that's fine.
Perfect. Thank you, Grace, and thank you everyone for having me here today. So I'm going to speak on behalf of FNA to present you some of the solutions associated with the National Fraud Portal concept and suite at FNA. By National Fraud Portal, we mean a shared utility that basically it's a combination of different solutions and tools that are designed to tackle frauds in different aspects, in different moments of their life cycle. The main distinction that we make is between pre-settlement solutions and post-settlement solutions. By pre-settlement solutions, we mean all those algorithms and software pieces that are designed to score payments before they are finalized. The goal there is basically to be able to detect frauds in advance. For that, we build basically graph AI models that are machine learning models that are able to score payment based on the graph features of the accounts that are involved. And the main goal there, so it's to make financial institutions aware of potential frauds happening before they're actually finalized so that they can be completely taken out and prevented. The other family of solutions, that is what I'm going to showcase you today with a demo, is the post-settlement one. By post-settlement, we mean all kind of tools that are there to mitigate the effect of a fraud that already happened. So the idea is so to enable case officers and analysts, and we will go a bit more into the details of users in a second, to basically be able to validate, prioritize, and assign existing fraud cases to analysts, and specifically with the money trail solutions, which is exactly what I'm going to show you today, to trace and track the funds, to be able to identify the malicious accounts that were bank accounts that were involved into the basically muling activity associated to the fraud, and to start the recovery process. So I think, we can directly now start to dig into the solution, so I can show you how the software and the solution looks like. Can you see my screen now? I'm sharing a different tab.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So basically, what am I showing you? So this is the core of our money trail solution. Who is the user for this solution? Basically, we are, for example, currently deploying this in some jurisdiction in the Southeast Asia, and there, basically, the user are mainly case officers coming from a centralized investigative unit that has been set up at the national level to tackle frauds. And they're able to basically have a view on the shared data coming from different banks and aggregated on a real-time live live environment, so that they can basically intervene on frauds. But users are not limited to this group. I mean, they can be fraud analysts sitting at the individual banks that want to detect the flow of money associated to a fraud that happened in their system. They can be analysts or investigative officers in specific investigative units that can be police forces, entities devoted to scam detection, and so on and so forth. So, and I mean, also we can customize the specific experience and the specific use case based on your requirements. This said, so let's assume you are a case officer, basically a specific figure that has been charged with the investigation, has been assigned the investigation of a fraud that happened. What we are seeing now on screen is basically a network where nodes are accounts and links between them are payments. And this network is specifically associated to a fraud event. The fraud event that you are seeing here is real, so it's based on real data. Of course, the data has been reworked in a way that we are not revealing any detail that we are not, of course, allowed to share. But I mean, in this network view, you already can see a lot of, there is already a lot of information embedded associated that helps navigate what happens specifically in the fraud. So starting from the color of the accounts, the color of the accounts of the nodes is associated to the bank they belong to. So as you can see, this picture is showing a flow of payments between accounts from different banks. So these are off-us payments, and this is quite important in the context of a national fraud portal, because I mean it's quite important to be able to see where the money goes after it's handed over by an account that is sitting as a specific bank. Then, I mean, you have also the icons embedded in the nodes, and these icons are associated to the role of the account in the fraud. For example, what you are seeing now is on the top, on the left here, you have this person icon that represents that this is the victim of the fraud. Basically, in this specific jurisdiction in which we work, there's a call center that you can call to report whether when you are a victim of a fraud. This is exactly what happened here. So the victim called, reported the accounts, and that reported the fraud, and that triggered the automatic tracing of funds. These other icons here, basically, that you can see are associated to accounts that have been identified as mules, so fraudsters associated to the money muling. So already at this level, just by, for example, hovering of the different element of this dashboard, you are able to retrieve some relevant information about the dynamic of the fraud. For example, the first thing, just hovering this first payment on the left, that is basically the fraud itself, the fraud that has been reported, and for this reason is selected in red, we can see that, for example, there's a given amount of, I mean, let's call it dollars. It's not dollars, it's the local currency, but just for simplicity, let's say that the victim sent $1,000 at 1:43 a.m. to this specific account that is highlighted here. We are already able to see that less than 1 minute later, so at 1:44 in the morning, the account, the first mule account, already forwarded that amount, just a small variation of it. Instead of 1,000, it's 999. This is probably done just to prevent some automatic trigger some automatic check. So it's already sending this money forward, and we can see that this is not stopping here, because this further account is again sending almost the same amount, just 1,001. So again, small variation. Few minutes later, less than 2 minutes after the fraud happened, the money was already forwarded to 3 different accounts. And this is going on and on, because then these accounts, in a matter of a few dozens of minutes, less than half an hour, already submitted this money, split into 2 different branches, 2 different payments, again summing together to the value of the fraud and sending it over to 2 different accounts. So as you can see already at this stage, it's possible to recover, to start understanding what happened with this fraud. At the same time, though, what I showed you happened in less than 20 minutes after the fraud happened. And unfortunately, in most cases, frauds are not reported so fast. So maybe they're reported a few hours after, and this means that, of course, the picture is going to be much more complicated than this. This is a scripted demo, but actually this system is built to work in real time. So it's updated in quasi-real time with batches of incoming payments. So here, just by clicking on the different steps of this time bar, I'm showing you what happens in time, how the system evolves in time. So now we are basically at this last step, we are 24 hours after the fraud happened. And you can see how the picture is much more complicated than before. Now we have 243 accounts, so it's not quite so straightforward to understand who is involved in the fraud and who is not. We have hundreds and hundreds of payment, and of course the problem here is now for the officer that, let's say the fraud is reported 24 hours. The problem now for the officer is, okay, who in this blob of accounts is actually a mule and who is a merchant that was paid by a mule but has nothing to do with the fraud, and so on and so forth. Here is where we start to plug in our analytics, because, for example, we have graph AI models, so machine learning models that are designed to detect the malicious activity on a larger system. And for example, here I just triggered the filter using basically the scores, the malicious score detected by the model, and I'm showing you only the accounts out of that massive set of accounts that are basically have a score high enough to be suspected to be part of the muling process. As you can see now, we reduce the system to only 13 accounts. We are able to follow quite a complicated flow of money, so that we are able to follow the full flow of money up to basically hours after the fraud has happened. So again, in this way, we are helping the officer to make sense of a quite complicated landscape and identify specifically the accounts that are assigned, that were active in the fraud. Basically, at this point, the user, for example, let's say the case officer can take some further action, which is exactly what already happened in this case. For example, the shape here, the square shape of the accounts means that this account not only has been identified as a mule, but also some actions has been taken on this account. For example, it's been earmarked so that from now on it will be monitored and investigated with the purpose basically of fund recovery. This other account instead has been freezed, so you already cannot receive any more money, and basically now the recovery process starts, and there's going to be, this depends on the specific jurisdiction, there's going to be some checks on it to verify that actually this money can be legally tracked down to the fraud, and in case this is positive, the money will be recovered. Okay, so
one more minute.
Exactly, and thank you for the reminder, because I just wanted to say that exactly. So I hope I was clear enough in showcasing you how money trade solution can be used to basically track funds associated with fraud and recover them. And I mean, I'm in ending my presentation here. I want to thank you and share with you our contacts in case you want to reach out for follow-up questions. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to ask for people to start asking questions. I see there's a question from Andrew Volhuter. Perhaps Andrew, you can actually mention your question. You're welcome.
Sure. Thank you so much. It's basically two questions. First is, it looks as though your solution is running on the back of Solonis. Is that correct?
No, actually, not really, because I mean, our backend is built internally. So basically, everything that you saw there, it's our original software, original backend that is built to be scalable and distributed. Yes.
Okay, no, that's awesome. And then the next question is, you've got all these banks involved, so that obviously involves your solution being on a switch somewhere. And it would be inter-country, not intra-country, because each country has its own legislation regarding data and the movement of data across borders. Okay, great.
Yes, I mean, yeah, this is a good question. Indeed, yes, of course, our solution requires some level of data sharing. The details of this data sharing, so where the data is sitting, how it's accessed by the different counterparts, it's something, I mean, we offer flexible solutions because, of course, we're aware that this is quite a sensitive topic, both intra-country and inter-country, who can access which data. So I didn't dig into the details because of time, but yes, we can, I mean, if you're interested in knowing more about our data sharing solutions and options, please.
No, I just have clients throughout Africa, and I'd like to sort of equip myself with knowledge.
Okay.
Right, thank you.
Thank you for that, Andrew. Are there any other questions? You're welcome to raise your hand and actually speak them. Okay, I would like to ask you a question, Federico. What is your onboarding process for the various banks? And how scalable is it? Is there like a finite number of banks that you can add, or is it as many as need to be?
I mean, that's also a very good question. So in terms of onboarding, we have we had the different experience across different jurisdictions. What is more often that we observe more often is that usually there's quite time needed, of course, to set up the system, also for the banks, for example, to standardize their data in a way that they can, it can be merged together so that it can work. So what we usually do is we start some kind of country pilot with a few banks, to set the standards and the system, usually the largest banks, so that we can, the solution can already have some traction and some reach. But actually we can add up to hundreds of financial institutions. Currently, I think the highest volume that we are managing in our money trail solution is up to dozens of millions of payments per day. But again, our software is built in order to be scalable, so we can, we could handle also larger flows. So.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Are there any other questions from anyone else before we move on to Tazama? Okay, thank you for that. Over to you, Sandy, from Tazama. I'll give you a minute to upload your presentation. You're on mute.
Okay, now we can start. Right, can you see my screen now? And can you hear me?
I'm not seeing your screen. Can anyone else? Is it just me? Can anyone else not see Sandy's screen?
No, not yet, Grace.
I think she hasn't shared yet. Cindy, share.
Oh, I thought I had shared.
In my case, I had a very similar issue.
There we go.
I can see it now.
Okay. And with a bit of luck, the presentation will come up. There we go. Can you see Tazama?
Yes, we can.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Sandy Labuskaghni, and I'm the product owner for Tazama. Tazama is an open source real-time transaction monitoring system in the Linux Foundation since late 2023, funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation since 2019, and a member of the Digital Public Goods Alliance since August 2024. So what does Tazama as a word mean? It's a Swahili name that means to look, to watch, to inspect, investigate, or examine. And that is exactly what Tazama does. It looks for suspicious behavior that indicates money laundering or fraud. Fraud is a massive problem worldwide. We know that recent stats show 25% of the global population having been defrauded by more than $1 trillion in the last 12 months. This is staggering, and this is the reason Tazama exists. Our aim is to promote trust in digital ecosystems. Access to digital ecosystems is the cornerstone for financial inclusion, and it's Tazama's mission to make sure that users of these systems can do so safely. We can protect consumers and help stop fraud in real time before it happens. 4 key features of Tazama that I'd like to highlight. Firstly, we believe that a transaction monitoring system that focuses on fraud detection and prevention should operate in real time, because you need to be able to block a transaction before the transaction is completed. If a fraudulent transaction is allowed to settle, by the time the fraud is realized, the money has been moved through a number of money laundering mechanisms and is untraceable. We offer an API for fraud as a service. The architecture allows for open interface where anybody in an ecosystem can send transactions through for valuation. A rules-based approach must seem quite delightfully quaint in a market dominated by AI and machine learning. But for Tazama, it was a deliberate choice. Our mission is to deliver accessible transaction monitoring capabilities to everyone. Secure and safe transactions are the cornerstone of financial inclusion, but expensive solutions contradict the requirement for financial inclusion. Also, given our focus on emerging economies that are not yet well established or well resourced for these types of AI technologies, a rules-based approach is easier for people to integrate into their existing processes, also easier to explain to internal investigation teams or to regulators. We do have plans in place to build AI capabilities into the Tazama platform with an initial focus on calibration of rules and rule discovery. And lastly, our rules and topologies are configurable. You're able to change the evaluation parameters without the need of an IT developer. A financial services provider or payment switch can send transactions via the Transaction Monitoring Service API for those transactions to be evaluated in Tazama. The TMS API is currently built to accept ISO 20022 messages in JSON format. If you do not have an interface that's capable of communicating with Tazama in that format, you can use a payment platform adapter to translate your message into the appropriate format. We currently have a payment platform adapter that has been built for the mojo loop switching platform. Once your transactions are ingested via the API, the transactions are evaluated and the Tazama system would deliver a result of that evaluation out to a case management system for investigation or back to the client system so that the transaction could potentially be blocked if there is a high amount of suspicion that the transaction is fraudulent. Over to demo. Tazama is a back-end engine, but we've built this demo user interface to be able to more easily visualize how Tazama works and to be able to simulate transactions between debtors on the left and creditors on the right, and to be able to see the evaluation of the results at the bottom. Tazama has 33 rules provided in the system by default. These rules are extensible, and more rules and typologies can be added. Each rule has a single task. So, for example, Rule 78 evaluates the transaction type, while 76 is the time since the last transaction or large number of similar transactions. So each rule has a singular purpose. Each rule has a range of possible outcomes. Each outcome is assigned a weighting depending on whether that behavior is suspicious or not. So you would expect a transaction that's done within seconds to have a higher weighting than transactions done days apart. A rule like we read if there was a weighting generated out of the rule outcome versus rules that didn't trigger an outcome. In this case, a reasonable walking speed between the last two transactions indicates that this is less suspicious than had there been an improbable distance between the two transactions. Rule weightings are aggregated into typology scores here on the right. There are 31 typologies by default. You can click on a specific typology to see which rules are configured to aggregate into a particular typology. This typology score is a sum of the weighted or the weights that were generated by the rules that are applicable to that particular transaction. So in this case, suspicious transaction patterns, this particular typology had a result of 800, which exceeded the alert threshold of 500. Hence, the light is yellow and an alert would have been created for a case management system. This particular typology doesn't have an interdiction threshold, but if we have a look at a scam typology, in this particular case, the most recent transaction that was evaluated through the platform exceeded the interdiction threshold. Hence, there was an alert and the transaction was blocked. Let's go back to presentation. So taking a look at deployment options, Tazama is free to install and use. You can do it yourself, download Tazama from our GitHub and install it in your environment to monitor your transactions and handle your own alerts and investigations. You can also employ the services of a system integrator, or if you are a system integrator, you can implement Tazama for your customers. We are always on the lookout for implementation partners in our market who can implement, maintain, and support Tazama in their region. Alert handling and investigations will still be handled by the financial services provider in this case. In some ecosystems, a central authority such as a clearinghouse, central bank, or payments regulator will operate a single instance of Tazama in an ecosystem consisting of a number of participating financial services providers and offer their participants centralized transaction monitoring services, Tier 1 alert handling and investigations, and facilitate collaborative Tier 2 alert resolution. It is also possible to operate Tazama as an external third-party service provider to a number of participants as a managed service, where the service provider would handle all of the technical aspects as well as the alerting, handling, investigations, and regulatory reporting. That's it. Please head over to Tazama GitHub repository and download Tazama for free.
Thank you, Sandy. Are there any questions for Sandy on Tazama? I've got a couple, but I just wanted to give Let's give Andrew an opportunity. Andrew, please proceed.
Sorry, I'm very chatty. I have clients on East Coast Africa, West Coast Africa, banks. They are obviously constrained in terms of budget. So this entire, and I want your front end, by the way, even though it's a demo. So this entire thing, I can take it lock, stock, and barrel, go and integrate it with my clients' systems, and it would run. And if we needed ongoing support, would you be able to assist?
So Tazama is funded currently by the Gates Foundation. We don't have a development team or support, so all support is provided on a best efforts basis. But we do have system integrators who we are partnering with, who are partnering with clients to support and maintain Tazama.
Okay, perfect.
Does that answer the question?
It does actually. So I've got about, so it's about 5 or 6 banking clients. So I'll be making contact with you after this call, if that's okay. And we'll take it further.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from anyone before I ask? Okay. So when you mentioned that Tazama is a rule-based system, I'm assuming that you mean rules to detect fraud. So
yes.
That's correct. Is that correct? Okay, cool. So how often do rules get updated, and what process do you typically follow to update the rules? And what is the trigger for the rules update process?
Okay, so as I mentioned, there are many different ways of discovering new rules, either through AI mechanisms or through latest fraud or trend reports. New rules, a brand new rule would need to be developed. So there's a module of code that would need to be built to determine that one singular rule that you're wanting to evaluate. But once the rules developed, the rest of the process is configuration to determine through JSON files which rules are included in which typologies, and various aspects of the rules, such as the weightings, the bands. Those aspects are all done through configuration.
Okay.
Have I answered your
and
question?
Yes, you have. And just my last question. So if someone were to implement this, they're obviously able to add to the rules, hey? Because I guess maybe each organization
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right. And then final question.
After your last question.
Final question before you come in. So the final question is, if an organization would like to move from rules-based to more of an AI-based approach, would that be possible with the Tazama tool?
Yes, so yes, it certainly is our intention to move to a paradigm where we are more AI focused and AI based, but we do believe there's a place for rule-based fraud detection.
Okay,
thank you. Back to you. Sorry, Andrew, I think I cut you off.
No. You're asking more intelligent questions. In terms of the rules, it's just to jog my memory. So I have a new rule. I'm getting it in JSON. I write this thing. I drop the system. I put it there. Is it a hot swap, or do I have to drop the system in order to bring it in?
To bring in a new rule, you would need to bring in a new network map. So you would need to switch on and switch off and reload a config file.
Awesome. And how long does that take?
Minutes.
I mean, okay, minutes. Okay, that's cool. Because otherwise I'll need a maintenance window for over a weekend.
No. Literally load the configuration and restart the processes in a particular sequence, yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on to wrapping up the session? Okay. Thank you, Sandy, for your presentation. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. You can just give me a moment. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, all right, great. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all our presenters from FNA, from Paycode, and for Tazama for their presentations, and also for the audience members, as well as your questions. So at this point, I'd like to remind everyone about our next sessions. Please use the QR code for registering for our next sessions. Tomorrow on the 20th of November, we've got a session on complaints and redress for victims of fraud in West Africa. And that's from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. West Africa time. Then on Thursday, the after tomorrow, we have a session on counteracting digital payment fraud through RegTech and SupTech, prevent, protect, and pursue from 12 to 1 West Africa time. And on Friday, we have our demo day from 12:30 to 3:15 p.m. West Africa time, where we'll get to view the solutions that the teams have been working on. At this juncture, I would also like to say that we could not have executed this tech sprint on our own or even this conference. We are extremely grateful to our delivery partners and collaborators for their invaluable support throughout this journey. Our delivery partners, as you can see, Nayawa and Tazama, have been instrumental in providing the platforms and data for the tech sprint, as well as helping to promote the event. Our collaborators, as listed there, have supported us by sharing information about the tech sprint across their networks, newsletters, and other promotional channels. We'd also like to give special mention and recognition to the Makerere University Department of Computer Science for providing high-quality synthetic mobile money data generated using their mobile money transaction simulator. I want to just quickly run through our collaborators. So we've got Africa FinTech Network, the Consumer Advocacy and Empowerment Foundation, Consumers International, FinTech Nigeria, FSI, IPA, the Makerere University Department of Computer Science. We've got Paycode, who we had the privilege of listening to earlier. We've got RegTech Africa, the RegTech Association, and Turntable. So thank you once again, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you in our next sessions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.